Hey y'all, this is Allie Spears, your host of the Ag Chicks podcast, where I cultivate connections with the women who are helping feed the world. Today's guest is Hope Brandt. Hope is a registered dietitian, founder and owner of Hopewell Health, and splits her time between Oklahoma and Louisiana with her husband, baby girl, and French Bulldog. Her practices center around the creation of sustainable nutrition habits based on individualized behavior change, body image improvement, positive mindset shifts, reliable information, and realistic expectations. Please help me welcome Hope to the Ag Chicks podcast. Okay, well, I'm super excited to sit down with Hope today. We had the privilege of meeting, what was it, 10 days ago, I guess, at this point? I don't even know what month it is right now.
Right, I know. It feels like it was yesterday, but also I've lived an entire life since that time, so
Totally, yes.
yeah, a couple weeks ago, probably, give or
Yeah,
take.
yeah, sometime in July. We had the opportunity to meet at the Prime Partners event hosted by NCBA and Beef is What's for Dinner through the Beef Checkoff program. And we connected there, and we thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of do a little podcast swap. So, like I said, very excited to have you on today, Hope, and get to know a little bit more about you, because we definitely talked while we were together, but so much going on that we didn't have a ton of time to really get into some of the deep things. So
Exactly. Well, and it's so hard when you're meeting like 30 people at once. Things get jumbled, and yeah, it's not enough time to actually sit down with every single person and get into, some more tea.
Exactly. And everyone was so great and so fun and open and everything, that it was a lot of group interaction. So
Right.
yeah, excited to sit down and get to know you a little bit deeper. That being said, Hope, tell me a little bit about kind of where you're from, maybe kind of how you grew up, if that works to start things off today.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Hope Brandt. I am born and raised in Louisiana. And actually something that kind of makes me feel like I fit in a little bit more with you ag people. I am sixth generation on a homesteaded piece of land in Louisiana. And so this piece of land is extremely dear to me and my family, and it's housed, a ton of different stuff over the generations. It's been a sweet potato farm. We've done cattle ranching. None of that is currently happening. It's more of just like a park now. But it just has given me a deep, deep appreciation for the land and a connection to nature and animals that has been foundational in my life and how I want to raise my family. My daughter is going to be seventh generation that is raised on this piece of land. And so it just makes my heart so happy. So that's just a little bit about how I grew up, where I'm from. I've lived in Oklahoma for almost the past 10 years. So my family and I are really looking forward to getting back to Louisiana. That's the thing that's kind of in the works right now. I'm also a registered dietitian. I went back to school in my mid to late 20s, with being able to own my own business and be able to make my own schedule, work from anywhere. All of those things were very, very important to me as I came out of school with my first degree, which was in mass communication, broadcast journalism. So I was working kind of a marketing position, and it felt a little soul sucking. And I knew I wanted the opportunity to be able to make my own schedule and do something that I felt truly passionate about. And nutrition was that thing. So I went back to school to be a registered dietitian with the end goal of owning my own business, and being able to work online, work from anywhere, make my own schedule, with that goal ultimately in mind. And so I have been an RD since 2021, and my business has been cruising since that time. So I'm living the dream.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so I guess first question would be, what did school take you to Oklahoma originally when you moved from Louisiana?
No. Okay, so my husband and I met at LSU.
Okay.
Um, that's where his degree is from, my first degree is from. And then we moved to Texas for a very short period of time and then ended up moving to Oklahoma
Okay.
to take positions actually at the same place. It's a large wholesale plant nursery.
Okay.
Um, so my husband is definitely in the agriculture industry as well, but he is works in sales at that plant nursery, and I was working in marketing there. And so that little town, it's called Tahlequah, Oklahoma. It's actually the Cherokee Nation capital of the country. So there's a big native influence there. But there's a little school in that town called Northeastern State University, and they happened to have a dietetics program. It was, 8 minutes down the road from where I was already living. It felt very meant to be. The fact that we were already living in a college town and it was still a small town. It was very affordable. And so, yeah, we were able to send me back to school. Could not be doing what I am doing without the full support and encouragement of my husband. Um, and so, yeah, so we did not move to Oklahoma to go back to school. We just happened to be there already. I went back to school, and then I did my dietetic internship through OU. Um,
Okay.
and so I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about dietetics is that one, it's broad, but it's also very specialized in the type of experience that they expect you to have before you can go and sit for this test to be a registered dietitian. It takes a lot more time and specific experience to become a registered dietitian than a very unregulated term like a nutritionist. So that's kind of how registered dietitians are differentiated through a little bit more education and regulated job experience and testing. So,
Okay, and that was gonna be one of my questions too, the kind of difference between the 2, because I know obviously with registered dietitians, there's a lot more schooling involved. And then I guess what did that program look like in terms of, like, how long? Obviously, you had to do an internship, but what did it kinda look like for you?
mhm. So it's a 4-year undergraduate
Okay.
program. So you major in nutritional science. And then the post-grad internship program, they vary. And when I went through, I was one of the last classes that did not have to get a required master's degree.
Okay.
All dietitians now from this point will have a master's as the end point of this education process to become a dietitian. I do not. I went through my undergrad degree and then went through my internship process and I went through my internship COVID year,
Oh,
2020. So my experience looks probably a lot different than most people's experience when becoming a registered dietitian. But the internship, it's most similar to like how MDs will apply to programs and then get matched
okay.
to go through. That's kind of how the dietetic internship process works. So you apply to different programs and then you get matched and then you go through that internship. So OU had a little bit more of a medical focus. So I went through clinical rotations, I went through outpatient rotations, and then with dietetics, with it being such a broad field, we also go through food service rotations. So, like, we're actually working in the kitchen, learning how to manage those big kitchen um, workplaces like the kitchen in a hospital or the kitchen in a nursing home, something like that. And then we can also pick a few different rotations. So I knew I wanted an entrepreneurial focus. So I was able to connect with some dietitians who were already on or in the online space and kind of work with them for a few weeks at a time too.
Okay.
So after you go through that entire process, then you sit for the registered dietitian exam. And so each state does the exam, but it's a nationally recognized exam. And so then if you pass, then you get your credentials. And so it takes minimum 5 to 6 years total.
Wow. So that was a commitment. That's
Yeah.
quite the process, it sounds like. So I could imagine the frustration when you kind of get pulled into some categories with other people who maybe don't have the extensive schooling and background that you do.
Exactly. Well, and especially again, this is something that I think a lot of people don't realize is we're going through classes with like pre-med focus. So we're taking all of the extensive biochemical classes, organic chemistry, talking about metabolic pathways, all of these things that I have since, blocked out. But they do create an ultimate understanding of how different molecules, how different nutrients are broken down and utilized by our bodies. And it helps create a greater context as well to be able to read research and know what that actually means. Be able to synthesize information and then communicate it in a way that's understandable and that paints an accurate picture of what this piece of information actually means, which I think we see a lot in the nutrition space is that things are sensationalized and taken completely out of context to make a really viral piece of content, when in actuality, the thing that's being talked about either doesn't even function that way in our bodies, or it's not a big deal at all.
Right.
And it's being used to create sensationalized content.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that was one thing that was kind of eye-opening for me with our experience at the Prime Partners event, with just we all have the same issues, I think, no matter what industry we're in. It's just the actual topic may be a little bit different, but the same tendency of like misinformation and sensationalizing things that are just potentially not accurate or could be taken in ways that could impact people that's a problem across the board, I think. And so that was something that was refreshing, I guess, even though it's a challenge, but refreshing to know we're kind of all in this together.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I loved the connection that is made where it's, this industry of being able to feed people. Like, this is what we do. We're both in that's the end goal, is that people have nutritious food to eat. And where I come in is we know what we're eating, why we're eating it, and what actually makes a difference in our health outcomes. And so to be able to connect with people in every stage of that process, where we're looking at where our food is actually coming from, what that means, how we can utilize food to achieve whatever goals that we have that can be achieved through our nutrition, and then being able to link up with the culinary influencers also, where it's like, okay, then how do we actually cook the food and how do we make it something that we want to eat? And so, yeah, that was just, I loved being able to see the connections through this entire food chain, if you will.
I think that's the perfect way to describe it, because I think we sometimes get so focused in our sector of the chain that we forget about the downflow of everything else. Just like you mentioned, right? Like, yes, I know I'm a part of producing food, but sometimes I don't think about like how like people have different dietary needs or different, like everybody's body's different, and the way they process foods, the way they think about food. And then obviously being able to prepare it in ways that I am not creative enough to do, but we now have people that definitely are. So just having connections and building a better network through the entire process of everything, I think hopefully will make us as individuals of the food chain stronger now that we are kind of all linked up together.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that event was just such a great way to be able to bring this together and then give us all resources to be able to talk about each point of the process. And so, yeah, I know when I reached out to you, I was so excited to be able to, bring you to my end of the podcast and look at, okay, because I feel like people are so disconnected from where food is actually coming from. And it's just like you walk into a grocery store and it's there, but no thought is given to the people who are on the other end of that. And way too much thought is given to the label that's on the food, or, possible hormones or pesticides or any of these buzzwordy things, where if we took the time to actually understand the process from the root, wouldn't be that big of a concern. And so I
Right.
think it's a little bit backwards in that sense.
No, I agree, and I think, yeah, there's so many barriers. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but barriers of all of these decisions, and it's overwhelming too to kind of figure things out when you don't have a background in nutrition and all of the extensive stuff that you have. Just trying to make sure you're making the right decision for yourself and your family
Right.
is
Oh,
overwhelming sometimes.
well, and another element of that is, we have to make, whoever is producing and whoever is manufacturing has to make sure that what they put out makes a return. And
Exactly.
so, this term of greenwashing, where it's like, labeling everything as non-GMO or non-hormone or whatever, maybe even in a product where that's not even an option, where the
Right.
no GMO crops of that thing even exist, and it's still saying non-GMO on the label. And it's like it's not even pertinent to that item, but yet people still want to see that thing.
Mhm.
Um, and so it can be really difficult when we're looking at it from just like integrity of the product
Yeah.
versus what's actually going to sell in the stores.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. So from your standpoint, obviously working with clients, what would you say has been like a challenging thing? Like, does it kind of go in ebbs and flows with trends of what's happening, or is it pretty consistent across the board in terms of like how you approach working with clients? I don't know if that's even a good question to ask, but
Yeah, no, definitely. So, like things that people are the most concerned about, like
yeah.
things you have to bust the most. Um, I think that it's consistent in the point where you're always trying to help someone make their diet as inclusive as possible. Whereas diet culture and a lot of these sensationalized um, content creators are trying to demonize certain foods. And
Mhm.
so it's an ebb and flow on what that demonized food is, or what that demonized macronutrient is. In the 90s it was fat. Everything was low fat. You couldn't eat, don't eat fat. And as we've kind of progressed, I think carbohydrates have been more so demonized in recent history. And then, we're coming up to, okay, maybe not carbohydrates, but looking at artificial ingredients. And so there's so many things now that talk about, the number of ingredients on the nutrient label, and just taking that at face value, not even knowing what those nutrients are, not even knowing if they're actually producing negative health outcomes, just looking at it as a sense of trying to, and I'm putting this in quotes, eat clean,
Mhm.
but that's not even like that. It's meaningless. It's just a
Right.
marketing buzzword.
Yeah.
So it's always about being able to put what you're eating in the context of your overall diet. And so, yeah, a lot of people probably do need to reduce their processed food intake, reduce their alcohol intake, reduce eating out or eating fast food. But even so, that doesn't mean we have to be afraid of these things, and we have to know that the dose makes the poison in literally anything that we talk about. Water can be toxic if you drink too much of it. So it's all about what these foods look like in the context of your diet. And if you're creating a diet that is balanced in macronutrients, if you're creating a diet that leans on fruits and vegetables and beans and legumes and whole grains as the foundation, you're getting plenty of micronutrients and nourishment there, then what we do occasionally has a much smaller effect than people kind of set out to make it seem like, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, that makes a ton of sense. And I would say too, just obviously knowing you for a short time, but now following along, I would say your page does a really good job of highlighting those things of it's about balance and you can have this and you can have this and it can all work together if you do it in the right way. So
Yeah.
I think lots of educational resources just available through your content that you're putting out on Instagram, and I'm sure podcast wise as well. Looking for a snack that's American made and a premium product? Try Prime Plus Wagyu beef bars. Crafted from 100% American Wagyu beef, these bars are rich in flavor and packed with protein. Whether you're out in the field or sitting at a desk all day and need a quick bite, Prime Plus Wagyu gives you the clean, delicious energy you need without any of the additives you don't. Taste the difference of true quality with Prime Plus Wagyu. Beef with a purpose. Use code AGCHICKS at checkout for a discount. I appreciate that because as someone who is always like, oh, should I be doing this? Or you hear things or see things and you're like, oh, maybe I need to be doing that, or maybe I need to stop doing this. It's just so much information sometimes. You don't know what's right and what's wrong.
Well, yes. And I think that is the other issue that comes up with a lot of stuff. And most things, even most, supplements, actually, I think that's a huge thing recently as well, because it preys on our like most basic human nature, which is like, what's the lowest amount of effort that I could put in to see the result that I want to see? And how fast could I make this happen? And so supplement marketing preys on that instinct of all you have to do is just add this supplement. And then you're going to lose weight. You're going to be the peak of health. You're going to balance your hormones, whatever we're talking about, which actually takes a lot of effort over a long time. No supplement can give that quick fix, but when that, like, people want to believe that.
Well,
So it's really hard to combat information that might be partially true, plus it's something that people want to believe. And so that's really difficult to then have to be the person that comes in and says like, hey, I know like this sounds really great, but we have to be able to look at it from a realistic standpoint and know that if something sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. Nothing can quote unquote fix you. Not one single thing is going to make or break your diet or your health or your lifestyle. It is all about what you're doing together in your nutrition, in your movement, in your stress reduction, in improving your access and adherence to healthcare. So it's multifaceted, which sounds so lame to say, but that's the truth. And it's kind of a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
Yeah, well, and I think just knowing, I mean, that's the reality, right? And so understanding, yeah, there's all of these quick fixes like you mentioned out there. Most of it's also a quick way to make a dime for a lot of people.
Exactly. That's actually what it is. Yeah. It's money. It's not a quick fix.
Yeah. That'll burn out like the trend it is, and then they'll be on to the next thing. And you'll still be at ground zero because it doesn't work. So.
Exactly. And that is honestly, that might be even my bigger bone to pick with this kind of emphasis on like biohacking, supplement routines, all of this thing is that the thing in itself probably is not that damaging. But the effort that you're wasting putting your emphasis on doing this thing is not an efficient place to put your effort, but it makes you feel like you're doing something. It makes it seem like you're taking steps in the right direction, when in actuality, it's not having any difference on the outcomes that you're seeing. And then you feel defeated because it feels like you're trying, but you're not doing the right things to actually move you forward towards the goal that you're trying to achieve. And so it's just this like cyclical process of like getting your hopes up, feeling like you're trying really hard, and then not seeing the results that you want. And then you feel like you're broken. Nothing you do works. Whereas if you would have just put your effort into the things that actually do work, you would be making progress and you would be closer to the goals that you have in mind.
Yeah, no, I think that's important to remember even for myself.
I can get, this is like my soapbox item.
No, I love it. And because, I mean, even as somebody who understands how food is created, like I get stuck in that cycle of like, oh, well, I didn't think about that. Like, should I be paying attention to this? Or, oh my gosh, vegetables are bad. You know what I mean? Which like, I know they're not. Like, I know they're not, but it's just so much information sometimes that you're like, how do I sort through all of this? But that being said, if I can ask this, what's your approach to working with clients?
Yep. So the biggest thing that I try to instill in my clients, there's a couple of different skills that we work really hard on. And so we do multiple things throughout the coaching process to instill these skills. But nutritional autonomy, that is being able to make your own informed choices about your nutrition without being influenced by unreliable resources. So when you have the autonomy to know you can make choices for yourself based on the goals that you have. Everyone may have slightly different goals. Everyone may have slightly different needs that they need to prioritize. But you need to have enough knowledge and confidence in your decision-making ability to be able to stick with what is right for you. And so that's the first skill that I try to teach is I am here to provide the education for you. I'm here to provide the encouragement for you. But ultimately, I want you to get to the point where you are making these decisions for yourself based on science-based research and nutrition knowledge, and based on knowing what works for you. And then you're not swayed by all of these stupid trends or what your coworkers are doing or what your mom thinks you should do. You have the knowledge and you have the confidence to make these choices for yourself. So that's the first thing.
Love it.
The second thing is nutritional resilience.
Okay.
And this looks like being able to come back from a mistake. And the skill is shortening the time that it takes to be able to bring ourselves back to baseline habits. And so walking in with the expectation of, I am not perfect. I cannot expect perfect adherence to this nutrition plan that is laid out. So, how am I going to react when I do make a mistake? When I do make a choice that I know is not aligned with my goals? When I say, screw it, I go out and I just like eat to my heart's content and I feel like guilty and I feel super off track the next day. Okay, how do we come back from that? Do we allow it to spiral our entire week into this like self-sabotage process of like, I'll just start again on Monday? Or do we have enough resilience to make our next choice one that is aligned with our goals? So we practice this skill of nutritional resilience as well, being able to come back from those mistakes and have realistic expectations of what this process is going to look like. And so I work with a lot of clients who are looking for more freedom around food, less anxiety about their nutrition, who are looking for, to make body composition changes that they have tried to make for years and years and haven't been able to do sustainably or maintainably. And so through these skills of nutritional autonomy, nutritional resilience, we're creating sustainable progress and maintainable results. Because if we're not doing things in a sustainable way, the results that we see are not going to be maintainable. And then what is the point to get those fast results and then lose them even faster? We have to approach things with a mindset of true sustainability so that we get to the end point of having achieved our goals and we already have those foundational habits set. And so then at that point, we're on cruise control, and we know how to maintain the results that we've achieved.
Yeah, no, I think that's such an important piece, the whole sustainable approach thing, because there are so many, going back to the quick fix thing, so much of that. And again, ratting myself out here. I definitely have fallen victim to that, right? And I'm all in for 2 months and then I'm out after that because you just cannot maintain it. And
because you can't sustain it. It's like, okay, I'm going to cut carbs and I'm going to run 3 miles every day. And it's like, okay, whoa. Like, not sustainable at all. And also not even a smart approach for, like, if you were actually trying to run 3 miles a day, you need carbs.
Exactly. No, and I think more balance is what it's all about, right? And just being able to have your body work in the way that it's supposed to work. And so, no, I think that's so important. And then I know too, just kind of looking at your content and stuff, you kind of have 2 phrases or approaches that you use. I don't know if those are yours or if that's common things. But your is it 2 max snack?
Yes, a PET plate and 2 max snack. And yes, those are my frameworks. I'm in the process of getting them trademarked. But yeah, I love talking about these frameworks because this is my way of being able to simplify nutrition and make it where it is truly sustainable. Because if we're jumping through 5 billion mental hoops trying to create a meal, like, that's not sustainable. And then we're going to get to the point where we're burnt out. We don't have any more mental energy to spend on this. And so many people are already thinking too much about their nutrition in the sense of we're honing in on these like little tiny details that don't matter when we can just focus on the big picture, and that is good enough. So these are my big picture items. A PEC plate is the structure that I coach my clients to create at their meals. And so PEC stands for protein, energy, and color. Okay. So when we're putting these plates together for our protein, we want to look for a lean protein, which my definition of that is that the majority of calories from that food are coming from protein versus coming from a different macronutrient. So whereas lots of things are sources of protein, you have to be a little bit more particular when you're looking for a quality source of protein. So like beans, right? They have protein in them, but they're actually majority carbohydrate. Okay. So they're a great carbohydrate source that can give you a little boost of protein, but they're not that great of a quality protein source for the main protein on your plate. Same thing for like a fattier cut of meat. Yeah. I always say a ribeye because everyone loves a ribeye, right? But it is majority fat versus being a leaner cut. So looking for something like a sirloin instead, or tenderloin, anything with loin or round in the name, or leaner ground beef. Those are fantastic and some of my favorite protein sources. So we just want to, when we're picking a protein, we want to be cognizant of, is this a quality source of protein, or is it actually majority carbohydrate, or is it majority fat? Mm-hmm. And then pick a quality protein source. And for most people, if you look for like 3 servings of open palm sized portions of protein per day, then you're doing a great job of getting close to that protein threshold that we want by the end of the day. And so using the hand method is really convenient because your hand size is unique to you.
Right.
So a much bigger guy is going to have a way bigger palm than I do. And so he needs more protein than I do. If you're a very petite girl, then your palm size is probably a little bit smaller, which is aligned with how much protein you need. So it's not perfect, but it can be a great estimate for getting your protein by the end of the day. The next element is E, stands for energy. And so we're looking for fat and carbohydrates. Those are two of our energy yielding macronutrients. Protein is the other macronutrient, and it is vital, but it's not actually that great of an energy source for our body. Our body likes to run on glucose and it likes to run on fat. So making sure that we're getting enough of those things at both of our meals, or all of our meals, 3 of our meals a day, is really important for experiencing sustained energy, lower brain fog, more regularity in our digestion, better hormone production. That is key. We need to make sure we have enough fat in our diet. So that energy component, we're looking for starchy carbohydrates. Most of the time, if we can focus on starchy, complex carbohydrates, and a couple of tablespoons of fat at our meals, then we're going to be in a great place. But I like to put them together, carbohydrates and fats, in this energy component, because not every meal has to include both, right? Sometimes we're going to have a meal that's way heavier in fat, or we're going to have a meal that's way heavier in carbohydrates. And that is okay. We're just looking for a balance by the end of the day, but not every single meal has to be perfect, right? So as long as we have some type of energy on our plate, then we're probably okay for that one meal. And we can look at diversity throughout our day. And then the last element, C, is color. And so that's fruits and vegetables. And so basically, go wild. You cannot eat too many fruits and vegetables, unless you're getting to the point where it's creating some type of GI distress. But for most people, we do not have that problem. And we need more fruits and vegetables in our diet. So I think it's also important to kind of tease out those fruit and vegetable components from just a blanket of being included in carbohydrates, because while fruits and vegetables are carbohydrates, we need specifically fruits and vegetables. We need this produce to add fiber, to add hydration, to add micronutrient density to our diet. And so even if you have another carbohydrate source on your plate, add fruits and vegetables anyway, right? We want fruits and vegetables on our plate, even if we already have another carbohydrate source. So that's kind of the framework there for making a PEC plate. And then to max snacks, this is a framework for snacks to make sure that we're including at least 2 different macronutrients.
Okay.
So it's important for blood sugar regulation, for creating a snack that's actually satiating, for creating a snack that actually helps us bridge the gap between our meals and can help add nutrition to our diet. Snacks are not something where it's like, okay, I'm really hungry. Let's see how little I can eat. Maybe this 100-calorie pack will be enough. It's like, it's not, I promise. It's doing nothing. So when you choose to make a snack, make it substantial. Make it a combination of macronutrients. So protein and fat, protein and carbs, carbs and fat. And with that carbs and fat, we want to make sure that we're focusing on fiber, right? So like potato chips are technically carbs and fat, but very, very low in fiber. So we want to look for a fruit or a vegetable in our snacks as well.
Okay. Well, that seems like a very sustainable approach to trying to figure out how to eat.
Yeah. Well, and my goal is that, if we can simplify these processes, then it does become sustainable and it becomes something that we can be consistent with, so that we can ultimately see the outcomes that we want to see. Because being able to reach your goals will require long-term consistency. And if you're doing something that takes too much effort, that takes too much thought, then you're not going to be able to be consistent for long enough to see the results that you actually want to see.
Yeah. Well, and I'm assuming, right, to most people is they want to make a lifestyle change to better longevity and overall health. Overall health. So having something that they can maintain and be consistent with is the key to the whole success recipe there.
Yes. Yeah. And it's completely customizable and allows you to work with what you have access to in any circumstance.
Right.
Like we can find, go to gas station in Podunk, wherever you are, you can make a 2 max snack. I promise you something is there that will work in these frameworks. You can, I have an ebook that is fast food meals that are PEC plates. This framework works, and
Right.
it doesn't have to be any more complicated than making sure that we're eating in a balanced and nourishing dietary pattern.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think, yeah, I love your approach to everything, and it makes sense. So hopefully anyone listening who's questioning things gets some good information out of this.
Yeah, I know. And I feel like I beat a dead horse with the focus on simplicity. And I am completely aware that there are absolutely some circumstances that do require some more precision, that are in need of a more detailed and more focused approach, right? For people with like kidney disease, who we need to watch out for specific nutrients that need to be limited, for athletes who need a more tailored approach to being able to, have the performance of their lives in, on a specific date. Like
Right.
all of these things require a little bit more precision than this. But, and I don't want to offend anyone, but most people do not need that type of precision.
Yes.
Most people fall within the general population,
Right.
right? And so this truly is the things that are most important to focus on for the vast majority of people.
Right. No, yeah, that makes sense. And my next question was kind of going to be, general thoughts here on taking a step in the right direction, and I think you kind of just answered that with your two frameworks. So, and if someone is listening, which actually let me put a pin in that one because I have one more question and then I want to wrap up to make sure you can do some shameless plugging for yourself here. But after our experience and getting to communicate with each other and network and all of that, and getting a little bit of a sneak peek, I guess, behind the doors of agriculture. Is there something that you think ag could do better or that would be helpful to you as a registered dietitian in kind of breaking down some of these food barriers that you're seeing with clients? That's a good
I
question.
don't know. I don't know of anything to be done better, because I feel like the education of what is going on should fall to like my sect of the chain. But it is difficult to um differentiate between like different labels on things and different production methods,
Mhm.
and be able to make sense of those. And I think I wish what more people understood is that it's just can just be a slightly different way of doing things, and it doesn't mean that one is inherently better than
Right.
the other. And so I think it would be helpful if that messaging was more promoted, where it's like, I'm a grass-fed and finished farm, and that this is just how we do things, but that doesn't mean that our product is inherently better than a grain finished cow. And it can be difficult to decipher like the actual impacts, and the actual differences between those products. And this is something that I just have a bone to pick with like diet culture in general, but it doesn't mean that like you're a better person if you are eating food that's marketed as higher quality, right? And so I think a lot of people conflate like virtue with choosing a specific product. When eating eating a certain way, eating certain food doesn't actually make you a better person. It might just make you feel a little bit self-righteous, which I don't think is helpful. So
No, I think that's such an important point, because a lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you obviously know the science behind this, a lot of times some of those label claims or way that people choose to eat is because they have more disposable income, really, and they're able to kind of go down those niche marketing routes.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And so you having more disposable income to buy organic products or grass-fed and finished products. Yeah, that just means that you have access to those things. It doesn't mean that you're better for that or that they are even actually better for you or for your family.
Yeah. Nope. Yep. Right there with you. But Hope, as we kind of wrap up here, if somebody's wanting to work with you, or get in touch with you, what are some ways they can do that or steps that they should take?
Perfect. So I am the most active on my Instagram, and you can find me at Hopewell_Health. And I have several links in my bio where you can look at services. My website is hopewellhealth.online, and more detail about services and stuff like that is located there as well. And so, I mean, I am I respond to my DMs. You can feel free to message me if you have any questions or need clarification on anything. And I absolutely have room in my schedule to take some one-on-one clients as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So if anybody's listening and they have felt a spark of interest from anything we've discussed today, would highly encourage you to reach out to Hope. She is a wealth of knowledge and just a genuinely fantastic person. So please don't hesitate to follow along with Hope and reach out if you are wanting to do some client work with her, or just as an educational resource, because she has a ton of really valuable free educational content on her page as well. So Hope, it's been fantastic. I'm so glad we got to do this. I appreciate getting to spend time with you today.
Thank you so much, Allie. It's an honor to be on the show.
Well, thank you. And also, we're going to do a podcast swap. So if you loved our conversation, we're going to flip the script here a little bit. And so I'll tag and link the other episode in the show notes for this one. So be sure to listen to both if that's something that you'd be interested in.
Yay! Yep, come on over.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Ag Chicks. Don't forget to follow along on social media at Ag Chicks for more agricultural related content, and also be sure to check out your favorite podcast gear from www.agchicks.net. We'll see you next time.